Baja is a place that strips you down. It doesn't offer comfort, certainty, or control. It offers distance, silence, and time alone with your thoughts. It's a land of extremes, beauty and brutality living side by side, where the road can humble you just as quickly as it can reward you. We spent 10 days riding deep into the heart of the peninsula, chasing dirt roads, empty horizons, and whatever else we were hoping to find out there. This is a story about an amazing trip I took with friends. It's about adventure, brotherhood, and what happens when you ride far enough that the world gets quiet and you're finally forced to listen. This is a journey into the heart of Baja. Now let's dive in. I want to give a shout out to my amazing sponsor, Rider Justice. There's a lot stacked against us as riders. The unpredictable things that can happen out on the road, and there's a general negative perception of motorcyclists in the courts when something unfortunate happens. Thankfully, there's someone out there who's been fighting for us, like really fighting for over 25 years, and that's Scott O'Sullivan of Rider Justice. Scott is not just a lawyer, he's an advocate for riders. The kind who shows up to rallies, sits on nonprofit boards, gives free legal advice to riders in need, and truly fights for our rights. He launched Rider Justice to stand up for all of us, on the road, in the courtroom, and in our culture. If you've been hurt in a crash, if you've lost someone, or if you just want to know your rights as a rider, go to riderjustice.com. Welcome to Ride Beyond, where we go beyond the ride and into what matters. In this podcast, you'll find meaningful conversations with people who live with passion, chase freedom, and remind us what it means to live fully. The motorcycle is our connection, but the stories are what take us beyond. We've been on the road for over a week, riding almost entirely off-road through the vibrant and magical landscapes of Baja. We've ridden hundreds of miles south of the border, further and further into the middle of nowhere. But the further we venture into the desert, the feeling is becoming more ominous. These vibrant pastel landscapes are now becoming much more dull and lifeless. The plants now seem sharper, uglier, meaner. Somehow the sun feels hotter, and the atmosphere is growing increasingly more sinister. The devil lives here. You can feel it. My sense of optimism is now fading under the creeping feeling of dread. Because out here, if something happens, nobody's coming to help. My mind begins to spiral as I start replaying the endless texts from friends and loved ones warning us about the dangers of Mexico. Don't go, they said, recounting horror stories of criminals and cartels, of Americans vanishing without a trace, of murderers and psychopaths who kill foreigners and sell their organs on the black market. There were recent headlines right before we came on this trip about 2 American surfers who were brutally executed.
Surfers were on a camping trip in Baja, California when they mysteriously disappeared.
On Sunday, the state attorney general in Baja said the men were shot in the head. Their bodies were found deep in this well. Our reporting partner, Televisa, says police found bloodstains along with the remains of a burnt tent where the men were staying. This comes after an incinerated Chevy truck with California plates was found last week.
We haven't seen another person for miles and miles and miles. And as these terrifying thoughts take hold, we see 2 trucks parked ahead of us in the distance, flanking each side of the road. What are these guys doing out here? Is there something sketchy going down that we shouldn't be here to witness? There's no turning back at this point. They've already seen us, and there's nowhere for us to go anyway. We are in the absolute middle of nowhere. No cell service, no calling for help. And if something happens out here, nobody's coming. We keep riding toward the trucks. I can feel my heart rate spiking, and I think at this point our instincts just kick in. So we just hit the gas, kept our momentum, and rode past the trucks as fast as we could, putting as much distance as possible between us and whatever was unfolding. As we approach and pass them, the 2 men jump into their trucks. A few minutes later, Tyler and I turn around and suddenly James is gone in the cloud of dust behind us. We come skidding to a stop and turn back waiting for him. And it's just silence. Nothing. You can hear the sound of the trucks barreling down the road behind us as we yell out, "James, we gotta get out of here. What happened? Where are you? We have to go." I asked Tyler, "Should we continue and wait for him at the next intersection?" He quickly responded, "No, we can't leave James." And I agreed. I don't know what I was thinking. It was just a terrifying situation that was unfolding. But to understand how we got here, I need to take you back to the border, to the beginning of the trip. Earlier that summer, I got a phone call from my buddy Tyler Ravel. He's an amazing photographer from Canada and a dear friend of mine that I've worked with for years. He pitched the idea of a trip with just friends, one where we would map out a loose route with no schedule, no itinerary, and just go down, spend a week or two exploring the Baja Peninsula. I immediately said yes because this sounded like the trip of a lifetime. No schedule, no real plan, just endless freedom, friendship, and exploring new places that we haven't seen before. It all started on a foggy morning on the border of California and Mexico in the town of Tecate. The sun was just coming up, burning through the haze, as we met up with some of our closest friends, exchanged some high fives and hugs, unloaded bikes, strapped on our bags, double-checked all of our luggage, geared up for the ride. Joining Tyler from Canada, making the drive all the way down the west coast to meet us here at the border, was his buddy James and Joel. So we had 3 Canadians, myself who drove out from Colorado, and 2 friends from California. Monty Smith, a photographer, an all-around good dude, and Justin Chatwin. He's an actor, and he had a few days off before his next project to join us on the first part of the ride. The feeling as we were gearing up and building excitement for the ride was just pure optimism and feeling unstoppable. It's that early illusion that everything is dialed. We had a smooth border crossing, followed by some easy, paved roads and mellow dirt roads that led us up into this beautiful pine forest. It didn't even feel like Baja yet. We found a big lake with giant boulders and rocks, and we stopped and took a break and took in the beauty. The riding was really easy. It wasn't challenging, but it was really fun. It was a great way to start the trip off on a nice, mellow note, having fun with friends. We ended up in a small, dusty little desert town and found the best taco stand I've ever been to. This was all happening during the Baja 500, so these race cars and dirt bikes were all out testing the course, and we pulled up to this taco stand, and in the parking lot out front there's trophy trucks and dirt bikes, and it was just like off-road motorsports paradise. And we went inside, ordered tons of the best tacos we've ever had. This place was a really cool vibe, and we were so stoked to be there, especially after a long day riding through the mountains, riding through the desert. To get this taco shop was like finding heaven on earth, man. Those tacos were so good. Everyone's healthy, bikes are running great, and I'm feeling like this trip is off to a perfect start. After we were completely stuffed full of tacos, the boys and I geared back up, hit the road, and we went up to Horsepower Ranch, which is a legendary spot in Baja. Things seemed to be going so smoothly, so easily, and it almost felt too good to be true. We got a good night's sleep that night, and I'm glad we did because we needed it for what was to come. Day 2 started early with some coffee, a quick breakfast, and we hit the road because we knew we had a lot of ground to cover. immediately leaving Horsepower Ranch, there was a long and brutal climb to get out and over the mountain. This is one of those steep hills full of massive rocks and boulders and gravel. And if you don't keep your momentum, you're screwed, because once you stop, it's hard to get going again on these big, heavy bikes loaded with gear. These massive boulders and gravel, once you lose your momentum, it's really hard to get going again. And it seems like the riders who would fall, they couldn't get back going without falling and essentially falling and picking their bike up the entire way up the mountain. Luckily, Tyler and I made it up pretty smooth. We kept our momentum all the way to the top, and we sat at the top waiting for about an hour as a couple more of the bikes struggled to get up. There was no way we could go down and help, because on our big, heavy bikes, if we stop, we'd be in the same position as they are. It's hard to get going again. So it was kind of every man for himself. And the guys that were struggling, they could help each other up because they were both stuck. A lot of times, if you were behind them, you would fall too because you lose your momentum, and those guys would kind of help each other get going again. So it didn't make sense for Tyler and I to ride back down and also get stuck and try to help those guys. So we waited, and you could tell when they got up to the top, some of them were exhausted and breathing heavily. And when Joel rolled up to the top, he was the last one to make it up. You could just see a look of defeat on his face. He was broken. His bike was broken. His spirit was broken. He was just exhausted. And that first hour of the day, climbing that mountain on these big bikes, fully loaded with all of our gear, I think very quickly on day 2, the mood shifted from excitement to humility. It was kind of a realization that Baja doesn't care how prepared you are. And it's not so romantic anymore. You know, this place is pretty merciless, and it's not for the faint of heart. So we kept riding, and I had that in my mind, you know, on day 2 as we continued on. I'm like, man, this is a place where dreams go to die, and only the strong survive here. You might have an idea of what Baja is going to be like, but when you get here, it's a totally different story. So we rode throughout the day, and there was tons of crashes. Joel had lots of bad luck. His bike was completely broken. It was a mangled wreck, leaking oil. His drain plug fell out at one point and had a significant loss of oil. But we all kind of made it to our destination for the evening. We found this lodge on a cliffside on the west coast of Baja, south of Ensenada. And it was a great place to stop and assess the damage and figure out how to move forward. You know, Justin, his battery was dying. He was having these mysterious electrical issues. His rear tire was like shredded. And James, his bike was leaking oil. Monty's tank bag had ripped. The straps ripped off, so his bag was falling off. And Tyler's bike was overheating because his fan stopped working, and that was causing the clutch to go out because it was getting too hot. And you know, there's a lot of technical issues. There was a lot of crashes, and you know, people were pretty beat up and demoralized by that point. And we just had a team meeting with the boys, and Justin had to ride home to get back to go to a movie that he was working on, and Monty was heading back with him. And so Joel decided to join him as well. I think Baja wasn't panning out the way he thought it would, and we all had the talk that, you know, we're all relatively healthy at this point, and it's only going to get harder and gnarlier from here. So if it's not working, the safest thing to do would probably be to turn around, head back to the border. So we totally understood and supported Joel's decision. And, we woke up the next morning, and it was a foggy morning on the coast, and we gave each other hugs and, said our goodbyes, and three of the guys headed north, and the three of us remaining, Tyler, myself, and James, we continued south. From there, the landscape really started transforming. This was the Baja that I had envisioned in my head. It wasn't like day one or day two where we're in the forest or in the barren desert. Now the landscape became much more whimsical. Everything was bigger. Massive rock formations, giant saguaro cactus, these rugged and remote roads that stretched endlessly into the horizon. This is what I imagined in my head. As we wind deeper into the unknown, further and further away from the comforts of civilization, we're leaving all signs of life behind. The little coastal towns that line the coast of northern Baja, those were now far in the rear view as we went out into the middle of nowhere. They call this region Never Never Land, and for good reason. Out here, there's no cell service, no towns, no people, not a soul in sight. This is where the sense of vulnerability really sets in, because you're alone and it feels like you're 1,000 miles from nowhere. The weight of isolation is pressing in from all sides, and the further you go, the more you can feel it, the danger and the isolation. And I just remember thinking in my head, we came to a stop, and I was talking to Tyler. I'm like, all right, man, this is where the real adventure begins. We're all in now. So we spent that day on that rocky, bumpy road in the middle of nowhere, riding and riding and riding until finally we found a tiny little outpost of civilization in the middle of nothing. Little town of Catavina. Catavina was great. It was probably my favorite stop on the trip. This tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. We found food. As we were rolling into town, we found fuel. There was a dude that lived in a camper on the roadside who just sold gas. So we pulled up. He came out of his trailer and filled up our bikes, and we gave him some pesos and continued on into town. We found a little restaurant that was in the back of this old lady's house, and she made us some incredible enchiladas, and her dogs were running around hanging out with us. And across the street, we found a little hotel with comfortable beds and a swimming pool, and it was great, man. This was a place where we could spend a day. We stayed there for 2 nights and had a nice off day where we could just calm down, let the nervous systems rest, sit by the pool, fix our bikes. We tore the bikes apart in the front of the hotel and fixed Tyler's broken fan so his bike would stop overheating. I did a little air filter change and just a little bike maintenance to get us further down the road as we continued on into the middle of nowhere. We wanted to have that sense of security knowing that our bikes were ready for it. So it was a nice day off, and we really enjoyed it. We ate some good food. We kept going back to that same little place across the street, eating some good food made by this beautiful little family, and it was nice. Went out during the evening for a nice little trail ride just to enjoy the views and the sunset and enjoy the best of what Baja has to offer and the beauty of not having a plan, so we can stop as long as we want, whenever we want, and we would continue on the next day. I want to give a shout out to a really special partner of mine. I've been working with 805 beer for close to a decade now. And honestly, it's more than just a beverage company to me. It's a symbol of a lifestyle that I believe in. 805 was born on the central coast of California, the 805, a place where life moves to the rhythm of surf, moto, music, and open roads. And whether you're out riding, jamming with friends, or just soaking in the last light of the day, 805 is right there with you. It's not about hype, it's about living fully and embracing every moment. But what makes 805 truly special is their commitment to sustainability. They've been brewing for generations and relentlessly focused on preserving the land that they call home, conserving water, reducing waste, and protecting what matters, the land where we live and play. They support the raddest events and the sickest athletes. But most importantly, they support the culture. That's why 805 has become a staple in my life. We left bright and early the next day, and that road leaving Catavina reminds us why we do this. There was just a golden sunrise pulling us into the most enchanting section of the trip. Just a surreal landscape seemingly pulled from another dimension. Massive rock canyons unfolded before us, and these colossal, gigantic saguaro cactus standing all around us like ancient protectors of the land, looming over us like gods of the desert. We covered a lot of ground that day, riding from coast to coast to coast. We went from central Baja over southwest to the west coast, riding through these small little villages, and then back across the entire peninsula to the east coast, to the Sea of Cortez, dropping into the little fishing village of Baja de Los Angeles. Coming over the hill, when we first saw the Sea of Cortez, I was blown away by the crystal blue water. It was so beautiful. When we reached town, it was scorching hot, but we found a little taco stand and got some fish tacos and some ceviche, and we sat there for the evening, enjoying the view of the bay, talking with the local fishermen, sharing stories, and with the echoes of laughter all around us. And I just remember being really happy to be there, enjoying these tacos and enjoying this company and these local fishermen and these amazing people we've been meeting on the road. And it was really cool. And I went to bed that night, next to the bay and with Tyler and James, and a belly full of fish tacos, and just really excited for what was to come. And then the next day we woke up, we found a little coffee shop right on the beach, a little coffee stand, and we were sitting there drinking our coffee and eating a bit of breakfast, and we hear these two motorcycles come rumbling down the road and parking in front of the coffee stand. And they saw our bikes, we saw their bikes. We stepped outside to check it out, and one of these guys walked up and said, "Hey, are you Tyler Revell?" And we were shocked that he recognized Tyler. And we were like, "How do you know who we are?" And I guess they are also Canadians and also photographers, and they had seen Tyler's Instagram story and saw that we were also in Baja, and they found us. And these two guys, Steven and Gabriel, left British Columbia over a month ago, and they had been riding south down through the coast of America, down into Mexico, and down into Baja. And we just happened to cross paths in this small little town on the Sea of Cortez. And it's just amazing how motorcycles and shared interests can bring people together like that. So, we enjoyed our coffee with them, and we talked about the trip, and they told us stories of their journey so far, and we told them about our plans that evening to continue south and find a little camping spot on the beach. And we dropped a pin and sent them a pin, and they were on bigger bikes, so they were taking the easier route. They were taking more of the main roads, and We were taking the more difficult, challenging, remote off-road sections. So we just told him we'd meet him at camp. And, we went on with our day and had these insanely fun, sandy silt roads that we were just flying down, pretending that we were like racing the Baja 1000. I remember just these S turns and these deep sand, hitting these turns at like 70 on my XR, and yeah, just feeling like we were racing Baja, and it was so fun. We just got into the flow, and I remember when we would stop, Tyler would just be laughing so hard and like giving each other high fives. Like, yeah, we had a lot of fun, but the day was hot, and we decided to pull over on the coast and park the bikes for an hour or so and just jump in the water and swim and enjoy the day, enjoy the sunshine, take off the boots and really just be present in the moment and relax on the coast and swim in the water and just take it in. It was nice to just cool down before continuing south on some really fun, sandy, fast roads. Sure enough, we got to our camp spot that night. We showed up and the boys were there waiting on us. They made it and we found each other, and it was funny. We rolled up to the beach and they looked like a couple of castaways, their shirts off and wrapped around their heads, and it looked like a couple crazed survivors on a desert island. But yeah, we set up camp that night on this remote beach, and honestly, that was my favorite night of the trip. It was so fun, so beautiful to sit there and watch the sunset over the ocean and enjoy a nice, meal. That we just had some freeze-dried meals, but just to cook some food and sit on the beach with our dirt bikes, and I had just a little sleeping bag on the sand, and I just remember being so grateful to be there, to be in this place, in this corner of the world that's so beautiful, and be doing it with my friends. And it was just a really, really special night, sleeping to the sound of the ocean under the stars on a beach in remote Baja, Mexico. And I'll never forget that night. I felt very grateful to be there, and felt very content with just where we were at in that moment. So the next day we packed up camp early and we continued south. I think it's only appropriate that the best night of the trip would be followed by the most treacherous day. The landscapes were becoming harsher and more brutal. Like I said at the beginning, those beautiful pastel-colored landscapes, purple mountains and green cacti and this crystal blue water. Suddenly things were starting to look a little more dull and dead and lifeless, and the plants seemed sharper and the sun felt hotter. This sense of magic and beauty began to transform into a more ominous and eerie feeling. I remember vultures flying over us, and it almost felt like they were waiting for something to happen, waiting for us to die. And sometimes when you're out in the middle of nowhere on your motorcycle, your mind begins to spiral, and you start remembering all those warnings from home, all the people texting you, all the people telling you, be careful, don't go to Baja, that's so sketchy, it's so dangerous, and all the news reports of people being killed and attacked and kidnapped and disappeared. And
the United States consulate in Tijuana alerted U.S. citizens traveling to Mexico that there is drug cartel violence in the area. The Baja California Prosecutor's Office reported that during the month of March, there were 8 people kidnapped. 3 were found murdered in San Luis, Sonora, and Mexicali.
Prompting the U.S. consulate to warn Americans not to travel to Baja California due to the risk of crime and kidnapping. The consulate lifting a shelter in place for U.S. government employees after several reports of cars on fire, roadblocks, and heavy police presence over the weekend.
As soon as your mind starts spiraling, it's weird how sometimes that just becomes like the reality of your situation. And that's when we saw those trucks parked ahead of us in the middle of nowhere with no explanation. My biggest fear on this trip was running across cartel or getting into trouble with, someone that we shouldn't be crossing paths with. It was kind of scary to see people when you're in the middle of nowhere and there hasn't been another soul for hours, and all of a sudden there's these 2 guys meeting up out here in the middle of nowhere. We didn't know if they were farmers or if they were drug dealers or what they were, but our instincts told us that this probably isn't good and we should get out of here as fast as possible. So we just continued riding. We blew past them as fast as we could, tried to just mind our own business, and we just kept going. And as we blew past them, Tyler and I kind of looked back and we could see the trucks, see them hop into their trucks and start them up and start to move. And we were just like, oh shit. Eventually, Tyler came to a stop in front of me to check in and make a plan. And when we came to a stop, we turned around and James was gone. We don't know where James went. It's just a cloud of dust behind us, but we couldn't hear his bike. And we started yelling James, where are you? James. I remember Tyler yelling at the top of his lungs. And then finally we hear James say, my bag came loose. I'm trying to fix my bag. And I guess his saddlebag, which had been kind of coming loose the whole trip, but eventually totally came loose and got sucked into his back tire. And the bag got sucked into the tire. The tire tore through the bag and shredded half of his clothes. And long story short, he got the bag untangled, strapped back on, and we were yelling James, come on, we gotta go. And he finally got going. And once we heard his bike take off, we could hear these trucks kind of rumbling down the road, getting closer and closer. And we took off just in time and just kept going and never looked back. It was kind of a terrifying moment. And, you don't know if these guys were coming after us or if they were just driving home. But it was a little weird that something just didn't feel right. And that when we passed them, they hopped in their trucks and started following us. It didn't sit well. It felt really scary, and we felt helpless. And all we could do in that moment was just ride as fast as we could. So we made it out and kept on riding and rode through some really creepy feeling towns that felt abandoned and scary. And anytime you would see another person or a vehicle, it was a little creepy, and you try to just get away as fast as possible. So this region, I wasn't really a fan of it. And we continued going, and the further south we got, the hotter and hotter the temperatures got. And the next section that afternoon would be the most hellish riding of the entire trip. We had miles and miles of deep sand rollers and bottomless silts and endless rocks just chattering you to the bone. The heat was so intense, and it was just draining our energy, and there was not a soul in sight, not a town, not another person. And it was beginning to get a little concerning because, for one, the guys were falling down. James had at one point fallen into a cactus, had stickers all in his arms. With the heat, we were starting to run low on water. With the distance, we were starting to run low on gas. How do we get to civilization before we run out of gas and water and die out here? I remember at one point just banging through these rocks, and Tyler almost crashed in front of me, and I just hear him yell out, "Fuck this!" Foreign Rider is my favorite apparel brand, hands down. Founded by my friend Ralph Dunning, a pioneer in the apparel industry with over 30 years of experience, he built this company for people like us, riders, explorers, creators, those who live active lives and need gear that can keep up. When I'm training, I wear the Odyssey collection. It keeps me cool, dry, and performing better for longer. When I'm traveling or just relaxing at home, the Solace collection is my go-to for unmatched comfort. But the real standout for me is the Merino base layers. They keep you warm, dry, and feeling perfect under a waxed canvas jacket for those cooler rides. And when it's hot, like it is here in Florida, the Odyssey long sleeve tee keeps me super cool and comfortable all day long. The fit, the feel, the quality of these products is on another level. And that's why I literally wear them every single day. Foreign Rider isn't just clothing, it's a mindset. A reminder to live with intention, to choose quality over quantity, and the exploration of freedom, whatever freedom means to you. Check out the full collection at foreignrider.com. Once you wear it, there's no going back. But just as all hope seemed lost, we came rolling into this beautiful little oasis town. It felt like a miracle after the scorched, brutal desert that we just rode through turned into this lush, green paradise. There were luscious palm trees and vibrant flowers, and the air was cooler, and there was just a feeling of relief. We found a little hotel in the town, and it was just the place we needed, and it was just the time we needed it. So we took off our gear and cleaned all of our gear and checked out the bikes and took a long shower to rinse off the miles of dirt and dust, and it was just such a feeling of relief. And as we rode into town to go find some food, guess who we came across? Our friends Steven and Gabriel from Canada. They were in the town as well. They had found a place to stay there as well, and it was really cool to cross paths with them again, and we enjoyed a really delicious dinner that night and some margaritas and enchiladas, and we all just kind of shared laughs and shared stories of the road so far and reflected on all the ground we had covered over the last 10 days and all the experiences we had along the way. You know, the beautiful mountains and deserts and the amazing coastlines and camping spots and all the incredible food and friendly faces. And, you know, Tyler had put together such an incredible route for us, and his navigation was on point. Our bikes somehow were still running. Our bodies somehow were still intact. And, you know, we kind of looked at each other and we decided, like, let's end it on a high note. You know, we had this kind of unspoken goal of, let's try to make it down to Cabo. Let's make it down to the tip. And we made it about 3/4 of the way down, but at the end of the day, we decided to let go of the ego and respect Baja instead of trying to conquer it. Because the way that the last day or two had gone, I think we were all feeling lucky to not be broken, to have bikes that were still functioning, and the trip had been amazing so far, so why let it go bad when it's been so good? So the next morning we would pack up the gear and head back north toward the border. We had spent 10 days riding off-road through some of the gnarliest terrain in the world. When I look at a map, it's hard to believe how far we actually traveled. Baja stripped away all the comforts of daily life at home, but what it revealed was the magic of adventure and exploration. And most importantly, the feeling of brotherhood. Just experiencing an adventure like this with your friends. Like, these are the peak moments of our lives. These are the times we'll never forget. And we get to share it together. And no matter where life takes us from here, we'll always have that. We went to Baja on motorcycles, but what we found out there had nothing to do with bikes. And it's a trip I'll never forget.